Have you ever wondered what stories the river could tell if it could speak? Along the winding path of the Colorado River, long before cities rose or borders were drawn, lived a people whose lives flowed with the water, a people whose history is carved into the land itself. Today, we journey into the world of the Yuman, a story of ancient roots, resilience, and quiet strength. Isn't it wonderful to learn about people who came long before us, people who cared for the land, the rivers, and one another with quiet strength and wisdom? Today, I want to tell you a story about a group of people called the Yuman. The Yuman are a family of Native American tribes who have lived by the flowing waters of the Colorado River for a very long time. Long before roads and trains and cities, they built homes near the riverbanks, grew corn in the warm sun, and lived in harmony with the desert around them. They shared stories, songs, and laughter in a beautiful language, one that still echoes today in the hearts of their descendants. Families like the Quechan and Kokapa were part of this family, each with its own ways, but all bound by the rhythm of the land and water. Then, new people came. First the Spanish, then Americans. They didn't always understand the Yuman way of life, and sometimes, when people don't understand each other, there can be hurt. A war broke out in the 1800s, a time of confusion and sadness, as the Yuman people tried to protect their home and their ways. But even in the face of great change, the Yuman people endured. They remembered who they were. They taught their children to speak their language, to dance, and to remember the songs of the river. You see, history isn't just about battles or dates. It's about people. People who lived, loved, and tried their best to be good to one another. And the Yuman people, they are still here, still singing, still teaching, still reminding us that the land remembers, and so should we. I'm so glad we got to learn this together. The Yuman people are among the oldest continuous inhabitants of the southwestern region of North America, particularly around the lower Colorado River Valley, parts of California, Arizona, and northwestern Mexico. Archaeological evidence shows that Yuman-speaking peoples have lived in this desert and river region for thousands of years, with some estimates placing their presence as far back as 10,000 years. Over time, they developed sophisticated methods to adapt to the harsh desert climate, including seasonal migration, use of native plants, and irrigation farming from the river. Their settlements were often placed close to water sources, especially along the Colorado and Gila rivers, which provided fertile soil for crops and fish for food. These early Yuman communities built structures from materials like mesquite, willow branches, and reeds. Their homes, often dome-shaped or rectangular, were designed to handle extreme desert temperatures. They gathered mesquite beans, cactus fruit, and hunted small animals like rabbits and birds to supplement their diets. They also crafted tools from bone, stone, and wood, and made baskets that were not only functional, but often intricately woven and beautiful. Their way of life was deeply tied to nature and the changing seasons, and many of their cultural practices revolved around ceremonies honoring the cycles of planting, harvesting, and celestial events. The oral traditions of the Yuman people were passed down through generations. Elders told creation stories and tribal histories that shaped their identity and taught moral lessons to the young. These stories were not just entertainment. They were a form of living history, a way to remember where they came from and how to live in harmony with their environment. Their connection to the land wasn't only physical, it was spiritual. The mountains, rivers, and stars were all seen as part of their story. Woven into who they were and still are, the Yuman language group is a family of closely related Native American languages, spoken by several tribes in the southwestern United States and northwestern Mexico. These languages are part of the larger Hokan language stock, though that classification remains debated among linguists. The Yuman family includes several distinct languages and dialects, each associated with a specific tribe. These include the Quechan, Yuma, Mojave, Kokapa, Havasupai, Wallapai, Maricopa, and others. While each group has its own variation, many Words and grammatical patterns are shared, pointing to a common linguistic ancestry that goes back thousands of years. Asterisk, the structure of human languages is complex and rich. They often rely on suffixes and root modification to express meaning, rather than separate words. For example, verbs can change form to express time, location, and relationships between people and objects. These languages also feature tone and rhythm that carry meaning, making them musical in nature. Storytelling and song are not just traditions, but essential ways of preserving language and culture. The oral transmission of language means that pronunciation, inflection, and emotional expression all carry deep importance. Asterisk, in traditional human society, language was more than a tool for communication. It was a key to identity, community, and spirituality. Creation myths, ceremonial chants, and daily conversations were all tied to their unique linguistic expression. Unfortunately, many of these languages have faced endangerment due to colonization, boarding schools, and the pressure to assimilate into English-speaking culture. In recent years, Yuman tribes have made efforts to revitalize their languages through recordings, classes, and immersion programs for young people. Language is a sacred thread that connects generations, and for the Yuman tribes, preserving it is a way of honoring their ancestors and ensuring the survival of their culture into the future. Asterisk, the Yuman people developed their culture around the lifeblood of their region, the Colorado River. This river, winding through the arid desert landscape, provided a critical source of water in an otherwise harsh and dry environment. The Yuman tribes, including the Quechan, Mojave, and Cocopat, established their villages along the riverbanks, where the soil was fertile and the climate allowed for seasonal farming. They practiced floodplain agriculture, using the natural rise and fall of the river to irrigate crops such as corn, beans, squash, and melons. Their agricultural techniques were adapted to the rhythms of the desert, with careful observation of weather patterns and water flow. Asterisk, fishing in the river was another important part of their daily life. The Yuman people used traps, nets, and spears to catch fish like catfish and sunfish. The river also supported plant life like reeds and willow, which they used for weaving baskets, building shelters, and crafting tools. In addition to farming and fishing, they gathered wild foods such as mesquite pods, agave, and cactus fruit. Hunting provided meat from small animals like rabbits and birds, and larger game when available. Asterisk, spiritually, the river and land held deep meaning. Many Yuman ceremonies and stories centered around the river as a living presence. It was believed to be a gift from the Creator, a symbol of life and balance. Seasonal changes in the river's flow were linked to ceremonial events, harvest festivals, and rites of passage. Music, dance, and ritual offerings often took place near the water, drawing the community together in reverence and gratitude. Asterisk, their homes, social life, and survival were all tied to the river. It wasn't just a natural resource, it was the heart of their world, shaping everything from their economy and beliefs to their identity as a people. Asterisk. When European explorers arrived in the American Southwest, the Yuman people were already firmly rooted along the Colorado River and nearby desert lands. The first major contact came in the 16th century with Spanish explorers such as Hernando de Alarcon, who sailed up the Colorado River in 1540. The Yuman tribes greeted these new visitors with curiosity, and initial encounters were often peaceful, involving limited trade and observation. However, as more Spaniards arrived, especially missionaries and settlers, the dynamic began to change. The Spanish established missions with the goal of converting native people to Christianity and incorporating them into colonial society. For the Yuman people, whose spiritual traditions and cultural practices were deeply connected to their land, these efforts were intrusive and disruptive. Asterisk, as the Spanish missions expanded, particularly in California and Arizona, tensions grew. Some Yuman groups resisted being relocated, forced into labor, or having their children taken for religious instruction. The imposition of foreign beliefs, and the loss of autonomy led to uprisings and conflicts. In 1781, the Quechan Yuma tribe attacked and destroyed 2 Spanish missions at Yuma Crossing, killing missionaries and soldiers in an organized revolt. This event marked a significant resistance to colonization and interrupted Spanish plans for expansion along that route. Later. In the 19th century, the region saw a new wave of contact as American settlers, traders, and military forces entered Yuman territory after the Mexican-American War. These newcomers brought new pressures: demand for land, resource competition, and attempts to control river crossings vital for Western migration. The shift from Spanish to American presence did not ease the burden on the Yuman people. With each wave of outsiders, their traditional way of life came under threat, forcing them to adapt, resist, or retreat while holding on to their culture as best they could. The Yuma War, which took place between 1850 and 1853, was a significant conflict between the Quechan Yuma tribe and the United States military. After the Mexican-American War and the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, the region that included the Quechan homelands became part of the United States. Soon after, American settlers, miners, and travelers began moving westward in large numbers, especially during the California Gold Rush. One of the most important river crossings on the route to California was at Yuma Crossing. Located on the Colorado River, this spot was within Quechan territory and had been controlled by them. For generations, the Quechan charged travelers tolls to cross the river or use the ferry services. As it was their land and waterway, this practice, though traditional, was seen by Americans as an obstacle to free movement. Tensions increased when disputes broke out over land use, ferry rights, and the growing presence of settlers. In 1850, violence erupted when a group of Americans tried to take control of the river crossing without the consent of the Quechan. The tribe defended its territory, leading to attacks and counterattacks on both sides. In response, the U.S. military launched a campaign to suppress the Quechan resistance and secure the area for settlers. Fort Yuma was established near the river to serve as a base for military operations and to protect American interests. The war included several skirmishes and military expeditions into Quechan lands. Though not large in scale, the conflict ended with the Quechan losing control over their river crossing and much of their land. After the war, the tribe was confined to a reservation, and American dominance in the region was solidified. Despite this defeat, the Quechan people continued to survive and adapt, maintaining their cultural identity under increasing pressure. Today, the Yuman tribes continue to preserve their identity through efforts centered on language, culture, and sovereignty. Despite centuries of displacement, forced assimilation, and cultural suppression, these indigenous communities remain active in keeping their traditions alive. Many Yuman people live on reservations in Arizona, California, and Baja California, where they have formed tribal governments, cultural committees, and educational programs aimed at strengthening their communities. Language preservation is one of their top priorities because human languages are endangered. Many elders and tribal leaders are working with linguists and schools to record spoken word, teach children, and create dictionaries, audio materials, and language apps that help restore everyday usage. Cultural preservation also includes revitalizing traditional ceremonies, dances, and crafts. Annual gatherings such as tribal fairs and heritage days provide opportunities for younger generations to learn from elders, participate in storytelling, and perform rituals that honor the spiritual connection between the people and their land. Traditional basket weaving, pottery, and songs are taught in workshops and passed down in families. These cultural expressions are not only forms of art, but also a way of remembering history and reinforcing tribal values of respect, balance, and community. Political sovereignty plays an important role in the modern life of Yuman tribes. Many have established tribal courts, police departments, and economic enterprises such as casinos, agriculture, and ecotourism, which help fund community services like healthcare and education. They also work with local and federal governments to assert their rights, protect sacred sites, and ensure that their voices are heard in decisions affecting their lands and waters. Despite the challenges of the modern world, the Yuman people continue to stand strong. Their resilience is rooted in the memory of their ancestors and the enduring spirit of a people who refuse to be forgotten. Choosing instead to carry their heritage forward with pride and determination. The story of the Yuman people is one of deep roots, quiet strength, and enduring spirit. From their ancient beginnings along the Colorado River to the challenges brought by colonization and conflict, they have remained connected to their land, their language, and their identity. They adapted to the changing world around them while holding on to the traditions that made them who they are. Today, their efforts to preserve their culture, protect their sovereignty, and teach the next generation show that their history is not just a memory, it's a living legacy. By learning their story, we honor their journey and remind ourselves of the power of resilience, the value of tradition, and the importance of listening to voices that have long been rooted in the earth.